In the voice of Priyanka Chopra, there comes a point in every woman's life when she stops asking why he changed and starts asking why she tolerated it for so long. You see, we're often taught that love means holding on, that forgiveness means staying, that patience will one day earn us the love we deserve. But there's a quiet, powerful shift that happens when a woman finally sees herself not through the lens of someone who couldn't love her right, but through her own. Unfiltered, honest, whole. This story is not about heartbreak. It's about awakening. It's about the moment she finally saw her reflection and refused to shrink for someone who never truly saw her at all. This isn't just a goodbye, it's a rebirth, because he didn't lose her when she walked away. He lost her the moment she realized she didn't have to stay. Let's talk about that moment. Let's talk about her worth, and let's say it louder for every woman who's ever questioned it. You know, there's something deeply human about not realizing the value of someone until they're gone. It's such a common tragedy in relationships, romantic or otherwise. We get so used to someone being there. Their calls, their texts, the way they show up for us, the little ways they love us quietly. And then one day, silence. No arguments, no drama, just space. And that space, that's louder than any words they ever spoke. He took her presence for granted. He got comfortable with the idea that she would always be there, that her loyalty was a given, that her patience, her understanding, her forgiveness were just parts of the package. He forgot that love isn't permanent just because it's deep. He forgot that effort is a two-way street. And so slowly, without even noticing, he stopped appreciating her. He stopped hearing her voice, not just literally, but emotionally. You see, she didn't leave overnight. No strong woman does. She tried. She communicated. She repeated herself until her voice turned into a whisper even to her own ears. She begged for the connection they once had. She fought for the bond they used to share. But she can't fight forever. No one can. And when she finally walked away, she didn't slam the door. She closed it gently, quietly, respectfully. That's the kind of woman she was, graceful, even in goodbye. And that's when it hit him. Her absence wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. He couldn't hear her laugh anymore. Couldn't feel her energy in the room. Couldn't reach for the comfort of her presence during the tough days. Suddenly, all the things he once found normal became a void too loud to ignore. The way she used to remember the little things, the way she texted him, "Have you eaten?" when he was stressed. The way she looked at him when he didn't even realize he needed reassurance. Gone. And in that silence, he heard everything he failed to listen to before. Her absence became deafening. It echoed in his mind, in his routine, in the spaces they used to fill together. Her voice used to say, "I'm here." Her silence now screamed, "I was never meant to stay where I'm not seen." It's ironic, isn't it, that we only start paying attention to the things we miss when they're no longer accessible. He didn't see the power of her presence because he mistook it for permanence, and now he's left with regret and emotion that has no undo button. But let me talk to the women for a second. Ladies, listen. If this is you, if you've been that woman who was taken for granted, please know this. Your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. You are not someone who exists just to fill emotional gaps or soothe someone else's wounds while neglecting your own. You are not supposed to be someone's backup plan. If you love, love hard, but never forget your worth in the process. Because when your absence starts to speak louder than your voice, it means you've grown into your power. And as for him, maybe he'll change. Maybe he'll become better for the next person or even for himself. Maybe your absence will become his wake-up call, but that's not your responsibility anymore. Your job was to love with integrity, to show up with your whole heart, to be real even when it hurt. You did that. Now walk away with peace. Let him miss the version of you that gave him chance after chance. Let him remember the softness he could never quite return. Let your absence be the lesson that shapes his future. But don't go back, because the woman who is no longer heard is not voiceless, she's powerful. She's evolving. She's walking into rooms where she is celebrated, not tolerated. She's embracing a love that doesn't require constant explanation. She's learning that silence isn't emptiness, it's strength. And one day he'll scroll through your old messages, maybe replay a voicemail, and it'll hit him. She was everything, and I treated her like nothing. But by then, he'll be too far gone, glowing, thriving, and unbothered, because the woman who walks away with dignity never looks back. And trust me, that's the loudest silence the world will ever hear. You know, love, real love, is not for the faint-hearted. It takes courage to open your heart, to be vulnerable, to pour your soul into someone with no guarantee they'll hold it gently. And she did. She loved deeply. She gave everything, her time, her loyalty, her energy, her dreams. She loved with that fierce kind of commitment that says, "I'm all in." But here's the part people don't talk about enough: what happens when you love someone who doesn't love you back the same way. Not with words, because anyone can say "I love you," but with actions, with consistency, with presence. She kept showing up, even when he started showing less and less. She kept believing even when the silence between them grew louder. She kept watering a garden he stopped tending a long time ago. And slowly, painfully, she began to realize something no one ever taught her growing up. Loving someone deeply isn't enough if you have to abandon yourself in the process. You see, she was raised to believe love was sacrifice, that putting others first was noble, that forgiveness was strength. And yes, there's truth in that. But when sacrifice becomes self-neglect, when love becomes one-sided, when forgiveness turns into a pattern of excuses, you're not in love anymore. You're in a cycle, and cycles don't heal, they repeat. So she made a decision, one that broke her heart even as it healed her soul. She chose herself, not because she stopped loving him, but because she finally started loving herself more. She chose her peace over his chaos, her worth over his comfort, her dreams over his promises that never turned into action. She chose to stop explaining her feelings, to stop begging to be understood, to stop proving that she was enough. Because she was enough. She always was. But sometimes you're just too much for someone who isn't ready. And that's not your burden to carry. That's not your fault to fix. She learned that choosing herself wasn't selfish, it was sacred. And let me be clear, this wasn't an easy journey. She cried. She questioned herself. She missed him. She missed who she thought he was. She missed the version of herself that used to believe love could fix anything. But over time, that pain turned into clarity. She began to notice her own reflection again. She started to hear her own voice, the one that had been drowned out by compromise. She found joy in her solitude. She built a life that wasn't centered around waiting for someone to finally see her. And one day she woke up and realized she didn't feel heavy anymore. She wasn't carrying the weight of someone else's indifference. She wasn't shrinking to make room for a love that didn't make space for her. She was whole. Not because someone completed her, but because she finally completed herself. And that, my friends, is a woman's quiet revolution. We're taught to chase love, to fight for it, to hold on no matter what. But there's a deeper, more powerful kind of love, the one you have with yourself. That love teaches you boundaries. It teaches you peace. It teaches you that you can love someone and still walk away when they don't meet you where you stand. Because love is not supposed to be a battlefield where only one person is bleeding. It's supposed to be a partnership, a safe place, a growing place. And if it's not that, then choosing yourself is not quitting. It's surviving, it's evolving, it's winning. So to every woman who's ever loved deeply and still had to walk away, I see you. I am you. And I want you to know this: you are not too emotional. You are not too much. You are not hard to love. You just love someone who didn't know what to do with your light. But that's okay, because now you do. And that woman, the one who chose herself after choosing him for far too long, she's not bitter. She's not broken. She's blooming. She's rewriting her story. And this time she is the main character. Not waiting, not chasing, just living fully, fearlessly, and free. There's a moment in every strong woman's life when something just shifts. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. A quiet moment of clarity when she looks at herself in the mirror and says, I don't need to chase anyone anymore. And let me tell you, that moment isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of healing. You see, the woman who used to chase wasn't desperate, she was hopeful. She believed in connection, in potential, in love that could grow if only both couples were willing. She chased because she cared, because she felt deeply, and because she didn't know another way to hold on to something she thought mattered. She chased attention because she wasn't getting it. She chased conversations because she missed the way they used to talk. She chased commitment because all she got were breadcrumbs of promises. But somewhere along the line, she realized something: chasing someone who keeps running is a race you never win. It's emotional exhaustion disguised as effort. And she got tired, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Tired of giving, tired of hoping, tired of asking for the bare minimum and still feeling like it was too much to ask. And that's when the healing began, because healing doesn't always look like yoga retreats or self-help books or perfectly curated Instagram posts. Sometimes healing looks like deleting a number you used to dial every time something good or bad happened. Sometimes it looks like not texting first. Sometimes it looks like saying nothing, not because you have nothing to say, but because your peace means more than being heard by someone who never really listened. The woman who stops chasing isn't cold. She isn't closed off. She's just done choosing people who make her feel like an option. She's not punishing anyone. She's not playing games. She's protecting her energies. She's reclaiming her dignity, because the truth is, you can't heal in the same place that broke you. And chasing someone who doesn't value you, that's self-betrayal in slow motion. That's loving someone else more than you love your own soul. When she finally stopped, it wasn't because she stopped caring. It's because she started caring more about herself, her peace, her growth, her freedom. She learned that love doesn't need to be begged for. that if someone sees you and truly values you, they'll meet you halfway, effort for effort, heart for heart. Love isn't a one-sided sprint, it's a dance. And if you're the only one moving, the music isn't love, it's survival. And that woman, the one who has stopped chasing, she walks differently now. There's power in her silence. There's wisdom in her stillness. She's no longer driven by the fear of losing someone. She's driven by the joy of never losing herself again. And you'll notice something about her. She doesn't chase, but she attracts. Because healed women don't beg to be chosen. They choose carefully, intentionally. They know their value, and they know that peace is better than chaos disguised as romance. People might say she's changed, that she's harder to get close to, that she's too independent, too guarded. But that's not it. She's just not willing to hand over her heart to someone who hasn't earned the right to hold it. And if he ever wonders why she stopped calling, stopped trying, stopped chasing, he'll have to understand that it wasn't a game. It was growth. It was healing. It was her finally hearing the voice within that said, "You deserve more." So here's to the women who've stopped chasing. Not because they gave up, but because they woke up. Woke up to their worth. Woke up to the reality that love is a choice, not a chase. Woke up to the fact that the only person they ever truly needed to chase was the version of themselves they lost trying to be enough for someone else. Now, she's healing. She's rising. She's attracting energy that doesn't confuse her. She's embracing love that doesn't ask her to shrink, to prove, or to plead. She is not bitter, she is better. She is not waiting, she is walking. And she is not chasing because now she leads. There comes a time in every woman's life when she stops explaining herself, stops justifying her pain, stops repeating the same words to someone who only hears what they want. And in that moment, she doesn't shout. She doesn't argue. She doesn't cry anymore. She goes silent. But don't be fooled, her silence isn't empty. It's full. Full of the things she used to say, full of the emotions she once tried so desperately to express. Her silence now speaks the truth that her words never could, because she's learned that not everyone deserves the sound of her voice. Once upon a time, she begged, not out of weakness, but out of love, out of hope, out of the belief that if she just communicated better, if she just explained her feelings more clearly, if she gave him one more chance, things would change. She poured her heart into conversations that went nowhere. She stayed up nights crafting messages that came from the depths of her soul, only to be met with cold replies or none at all. Her words begged to be understood, to be heard, to be met with care, but they weren't. And that kind of disappointment doesn't break you all at once. It chips away at you slowly until you finally realize you're speaking into a void. You're fighting for connection with someone who stopped fighting long ago, and that's when she knew it was time to stop speaking and start healing. So she went silent, not because she had nothing left to say, but because she had said everything. Every plea, every question, every "can you please just listen" had already been spoken. Her silence wasn't retreat, it was a boundary. It was her saying no more. And the irony? That's when he finally started to notice, because silence has a power that words don't. It echoes, it lingers, it forces people to sit with what they've done or didn't do. While her words once begged for love, her silence now demanded respect. It made him question, wonder, regret. He started to hear the things he never listened to when she was still speaking. He remembered the tone of her voice when she said, "This is hurting me." He recalled the look in her eyes when she said, "I need you to show up." He thought about the nights she stayed quiet after an argument, not because she didn't care, but because she was exhausted from always having to fight to be understood. And now, her silence is louder than anything she ever said. That silence says, "I gave you chances." It says, "I loved you enough to try." It says, "I'm not angry, I'm done." And that is one of the most powerful forms of closure a woman can give, not with drama, not with rage, but with grace. With composure, with a quiet that says, "I'm choosing myself now." Let's be real. A woman's silence isn't always understood right away. Some will call it distant. Some will say she's changed. Some will label her cold. But what they don't realize is that silence is her evolution, her healing, her way of saying, "I no longer need to prove my pain to someone who never tried to understand it." Because the truth is, when a woman stops begging and starts protecting her peace, she becomes unstoppable. She learns that not every conversation needs to happen. That closure doesn't come from the other person, it comes from within, that her worth isn't defined by someone else's ability to love her properly, and in that silence she finds her voice again. Not the one that begged, the one that knows. The one that says, "I am enough, even if you couldn't see it." The one that builds boundaries, chooses healing, and stops accepting less. So if you're the woman who has gone quiet, stand tall in your silence. You're not invisible. You're powerful. And if you're someone on the receiving end of that silence, don't mistake it for indifference. It's not that she doesn't feel anymore. It's that she's finally listening to herself. Her silence speaks volumes. And if you listen closely, you'll hear everything her heart once tried to say. Isn't it tragic how we often overlook the very people who brought us the most light until we're surrounded by darkness? He didn't think about her smile when the room was bright. He didn't feel her warmth when life felt easy. He didn't notice the way she lit up his world until her glow was no longer around to soften the shadows. He remembers her light only now that he's sitting in darkness, and that's the cruel beauty of hindsight. It shows you everything you were too blind to see when you still had the chance. She was never loud about her love. She didn't need to be. Her light came in the smallest, most beautiful ways, in the way she supported his dreams without ever asking for recognition, in the way she stayed calm during his storms, held space for his silence, and believed in him sometimes more than he believed in himself. She was the constant in his chaos, the warmth in his winter, but he took her for granted. Not because he didn't care, but because he thought she'd always be there. He assumed her love was unconditional, infinite, unbreakable. He assumed her patience had no limits. He assumed she'd keep showing up again and again, no matter how much he forgot to appreciate her. But even the brightest light burns out when it's not fueled. So eventually she left, not in anger, not to hurt him, but because she finally realized that being a light in someone's life shouldn't mean dimming your own. She walked away, not because she stopped loving him, but because she started loving herself more. And in her absence, the world he knew changed. The brightness she brought to his life, the laughter, the depth, the quiet strength was gone. Suddenly, the spaces they used to share felt colder. The silence grew heavier. The days felt longer. That's when it hit him. He began to remember the things he used to overlook, the way she always knew when something was wrong, even when he said, "I'm fine." The way she always made his favorite coffee just right. The way she listened not just to respond, but to truly understand. The way she loved with sincerity, with intention, with everything she had. And now, he sees it all. Because darkness has a way of making us appreciate light. He remembers her light because there's no one left to fill that void. No one else laughs the way she did or encourages him with that same quiet confidence. He's surrounded by people, maybe even in new relationships, but none of them shine quite like she did, because her light wasn't just bright. It was rare, it was genuine. It came from a place of purity and strength that isn't easy to find or replace. And now, in his silence, he sits with the echo of her absence. He replays memories like songs he can't get out of his head. He wishes he had paid more attention. He wishes he had said, "Thank you," more often. He wishes he had seen her not just as someone who loved him, but as someone who lit up his life from the inside out. But it's too late, because a woman like her doesn't circle back. She doesn't stay where she's not cherished. She doesn't keep giving to someone who only remembers her value when she's gone. She's not bitter, she's better. She's not waiting for an apology that may never come. She's building a life where her light is reflected, reciprocated, respected. She's shining in new spaces, lighting up new paths, no longer dimmed by someone who couldn't see her worth until the room went dark. So here's the truth, plain and simple. If you're lucky enough to have a woman in your life who don't wait until you're surrounded by darkness to appreciate it. Don't wait until she's gone to realize that her presence was never ordinary, because a woman's love is not a guarantee, it's a gift. And once she takes that light back, the shadows she leaves behind will teach you everything you never bothered to learn when she was still shining for you. He remembers her light now, but she's already shining somewhere else. Life has a poetic way of balancing things out, doesn't it? The universe doesn't always move on our timeline, but it has an uncanny way of teaching us the lessons we refused to learn when we had the chance. He didn't value her when she was right there loving him, showing up, pouring her heart into every part of their relationship. He thought she'd always be around. He assumed she'd keep waiting, keep hoping, keep trying, and she did for a while. She gave everything she had, her time, her energy, her loyalty, her softness. She gave him parts of herself she had never shared with anyone else. But over time, something inside her started to shift, not because she stopped caring, but because she started awakening. She realized that her worth wasn't tied to how much love she could give someone who only took her for granted. She realized that missing him, aching for him, obsessing over what ifs and maybes wasn't helping her heal, it was keeping her stuck. So she did the hardest thing a woman with a big heart can ever do. She let go. Not with resentment, not with drama, with quiet resolve, with a calm that only comes when you've cried all your tears, begged with all your words, and finally made peace with the silence that followed. And now he misses her, not just her presence, but her essence, the way she believed in him, the way she made everything feel safe and exciting at the same time, the way she saw potential in him that even he couldn't see, but that longing, that ache in his chest, that is his karma. Because when someone shows up with open hands and a whole heart, and you fail to see their value, life has a way of making you sit with that loss later. And let me tell you, missing a woman who loved you right is a pain no one else can soothe. It creeps into your thoughts when you least expect it. It echoes in the quiet moments. It lingers in the spaces where she used to be. But here's the most beautiful part of this story: she doesn't miss him. Not because he meant nothing, but because she finally means everything to herself. Not missing him isn't cold, it isn't heartless. It's growth, it's strength. It's the result of doing the inner work, of picking herself up from heartbreak and deciding, this won't be the end of me. She chose to heal. She chose to move forward. She chose to stop replaying the past and start rewriting her future. You see, when a woman begins to love herself the way she once loved someone who couldn't meet her halfway, everything changes. Her standards rise, her energy shifts, her circle tightens, her peace becomes her priority. She no longer craves the chaos of a love that made her question her worth. She no longer reaches back to what hurt her. She's no longer looking over her shoulder because her eyes are set on what's ahead. And no, it didn't happen overnight. She had nights where the pain felt unbearable. Days where she questioned whether she made the right choice. Moments when memories tried to convince her that the past was better than the unknown. But still, she moved forward, one step at a time, one truth at a time, until the day came when she looked in the mirror and didn't see heartbreak, she saw healing. So while he's left replaying memories, she's creating new ones. While he's sitting in regret, she's standing in power. While he's wishing for a second chance, she's embracing her second wind. That's the thing about growth: it's quiet, it's personal. And sometimes it looks like not looking back, not longing, not missing someone who once made you feel like you weren't enough. Because now, she knows she is enough, more than enough, and he'll feel that absence not just now, but for a long time. Because once a woman chooses herself, there's no going back. The version of her that needed him doesn't exist anymore. So yes, missing her is his karma, but not missing him, that's her triumph, that's her freedom. That's her becoming everything she was always meant to be without him. Let's be honest, people often confuse a woman's silence for detachment, her peace for indifference. But the truth is, the calm she now carries didn't come easily. It came after countless storms. She doesn't miss him not because she never cared, but because she finally does. Not for him, for herself. Once upon a time, she missed him deeply. Every part of her ached for him: his presence, his voice, the way he made her laugh on good days, and even the way he confused her heart on the bad ones. She replayed moments in her mind like a movie on repeat, wondering what she could have done differently, wondering why he couldn't love her the way she loved him. She waited for texts that never came. She lost sleep over words that were never said. She cried into her pillow, questioning if she wasn't enough, if she loved too much, or if she simply cared too soon. She used to think love was about holding on, about staying even when it hurt, about proving her loyalty through her suffering. But love, real love, starts with yourself. And somewhere along that painful journey, she began to realize that the person she had abandoned the most in the process of loving him was herself. She didn't just wake up one day and stop missing him. No, it took time. It took healing. It took looking in the mirror and confronting the fact that the woman staring back deserved more than a half-hearted love. She deserved someone who chose her every day without hesitation. And more importantly, she deserved to choose herself. So she began to, slowly at first. She stopped checking her phone every 5 minutes. She stopped stalking his social media, looking for signs that he missed her too. She started pouring all the energy she once gave him back into her own life. She learned how to enjoy her own company again. She started doing things that made her feel alive, not for his attention, not for his approval, but for her soul. She surrounded herself with people who uplifted her. She created space for peace, for joy, for her. And as the days passed, the ache began to fade. The need to hear from him lessened. The longing softened into memory, and eventually the most powerful thing happened: she stopped missing him. Not because he didn't mean something, not because their story was insignificant, but because she had outgrown the version of herself who needed to be loved by someone else to feel whole. She doesn't miss him because she finally realizes that missing someone who didn't show up for you isn't romantic, it's self-abandonment. And she's done with that chapter. Now, she wakes up with a different energy. She's not hoping for his name to pop up on her screen. She's not wondering what she did wrong. She's not fantasizing about what could have been. She's present, empowered, whole. She cares deeply, fiercely, but the direction of that care has changed. It's not reaching backward. It's not chasing ghosts. It's rooted in her own heart now. In her dreams, her growth, her boundaries, her joy. And that shift, that's the rebirth. Because when a woman finally starts caring for herself as much as she once cared for someone who couldn't return the same, she becomes unstoppable. People might not understand it. They'll say she moved on too fast. Or she must have never really loved him, but they're wrong. She loved him with everything she had. But now she's loving herself with everything she's learned. That's not forgetting. That's transforming. So the next time someone wonders why she doesn't miss him anymore, let the answer be clear. She doesn't miss him not because she never cared, but because she finally does, for herself. And there is nothing more powerful than a woman who remembers who she is and never forgets again. Some moments don't need a grand goodbye. No tears, no confrontation, just a quiet awakening. And that's exactly how he lost her, the moment she realized her worth. It didn't happen in one dramatic flash. No, it was quiet, like a whisper inside her heart that grew louder each time she was dismissed, each time her love was met with indifference. Each time she stayed up at night asking herself, why am I the only one trying? You see, she gave her love honestly, fiercely, without holding back. She showed up for him, for the relationship, for the vision of together they once dreamed of. But every time he forgot to say thank you, every time he made her feel like an option, every time he neglected the little things that meant everything to her, something in her shifted. At first she made excuses. He's just busy. He'll come around. He loves me. He's just not good at showing it. But love that requires constant justification is rarely love at all. And eventually she stopped explaining his behavior to others and, more importantly, to herself. One day she looked in the mirror and didn't see a woman who was loved right. She saw someone exhausted. Someone giving everything and receiving crumbs. Someone who had forgotten that her voice mattered, her needs mattered, her needs mattered. And in that quiet moment of truth, she didn't rage. She didn't beg. She just woke up to the reality she deserved better. Not in a fairy tale, not in some distant future now. That's the moment he lost her. Not when she packed her bags, not when she finally stopped texting, not even when she blocked his number. No, he lost her the moment she saw her reflection and decided, I will not let someone else define my value. Because when a woman realizes her worth, she doesn't scream it from the rooftops. She simply lives it. Her boundaries change, her standards rise, her peace becomes non-negotiable. She stops chasing validation and starts chasing purpose. She stops waiting for someone to choose her and starts choosing herself every single day. And that kind of shift, it's not reversible. He might still think he has time. He might believe she'll come back like she always did. But this time it's different. Because now she doesn't crave closure, she is her own closure. She doesn't need an apology to move on. She doesn't need him to miss her to feel whole. She's not healing so she can go back. She's healing so she can go forward. And sure, he'll miss her. He'll remember the way she laughed with her whole heart. He'll miss the way she supported his wildest dreams, even when he didn't believe in himself. He'll feel the absence of her energy, the one that brought light into every dark space of his life. But it'll be too late, because she's not that girl anymore, the one who waited, the one who settled, the one who accepted less than she gave. She's evolved, and evolution doesn't apologize. Now she surrounds herself with people who see her, really see her. People who match her energy, who pour into her the way she pours into others. She's creating a life where her happiness doesn't depend on someone else's mood or presence. And that's the real heartbreak for him, not just that she's gone, but that she's finally free. Free from his silence. Free from the emotional guessing games. Free from the weight of trying to be enough for someone who never even tried to meet her halfway. So if there's one thing to learn here, it's this. Never underestimate the moment a woman recognizes her own power, because once she does, she will walk away from anything that makes her forget it. He lost her the moment she realized her worth, and she found herself in that same moment. And let me tell you, she's never going to lose herself again. Take care and goodbye.